Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Alex Wong, and welcome back to another video. Today, I'm going to be going over the brand new Clay pricing update and seeing if it is still worth it or not to use in cold outbound for enrichment and data formation. So, going into this, we're going to be discussing exactly the changes that are occurring and go into detail on what that would look like for you moving forward, as well as a little breakdown of each portion of what the new tech stack looks like it will become moving into the second half of 2026, and if it still makes sense for you to continue to use it or not. So without further doing it, let's get right into it. So once again, is Clay still worth it after the pricing change? Now, once again, the answer isn't going to be a direct, yes, it's worth it, no, it's not worth it, but it just depends entirely on how you use the platform, and we'll be going over that honest breakdown. So toggling it over to Clay here, once you take a look through their site, and they've updated a couple things, but most important, the keynote is that you'll see under pricing, these look a lot different. So breaking into what this now becomes, let's talk about a blog article that they released roughly about at the time of recording 6 days ago. Now, this is done by these gentlemen here, and it goes over exactly what that pricing structure looks like. So when they introduced it, right, they're going to now officially break up everything into two different factors. So your factors now will become, as you see here, you will have actions and data credits. So no longer will it be one consistent credit that you utilize for the entire platform. Now, as per what they said, we're reducing the cost of data in our marketplace by 50 to 90%, right? Making these prices comparable with what you pay externally, according to them. Data credits always get cheaper as you grow, and we're cutting the premium on data top-ups from 50 to 30%. Now, within their new plans as well, some of their features like CRM integrations and web intent and things like that are now available at their $495 a month plan, which is according again $305 less than the old Pro plan. To achieve this, they're introducing actions, and this is where you'll come around to the other end, where pricing now separates data costs in terms of credits from platform work in terms of actions. So if you remember tools like Make.com and Zapier, there you go. Like that's what an action practically would be. So according to them, will give you a clearer picture of what you spend, and data credits are now more affordable, and 90% of customers will never hit their action limits. So existing self-serve customers can also now choose what's best for them. Enterprise customers will receive a custom transition plan. So if you are staying on the legacy plan they think is best for you, you don't have to change anything. If you want to switch to a different legacy plan from the time of this, you have 30 days to decide. So I believe it's April 10th that they're at 10th or 11th, they're saying no more legacy plan purchases. And they said they'll reach out to you if you think that they want to save more money. So the reason why they say they're making this change is because Clay built a data marketplace to help customer better research prospects. The first use case was enriching and exploring lists of companies and contacts. We then built signals to help people track buying moments, audiences to centralize data across their accounts, sequencers to actually be able to execute these email campaigns, and ads to target the right accounts. Now, they've classified today that Clay is an end-to-end GTM engineering tool that helps team enrich, orchestrate, and automate every part of their growth motion. So now that the Clay credits of what they were are now previously bundled into the cost of data and cost of using the platform into one metric, right? If you were to be focusing on acquiring data, Clay felt expensive. If you were orchestrating complex workflows, Clay didn't share that value at work. Based on their information, here's now what those new the new credit layouts will look like. So same philosophy, you'll still have your free plan, right? You'll have your launch plan and growth plan, right? Now, based on which one you want, of course, they will come with the actions and the data credits. Now, just to break that down one more time, actions measure the orchestration you do in Clay. So enriching data, running AI research, and sending data to other tools, even if you're not using data credits. So I'd like to believe at the 15,000 actions per month, let's just say, for example, and you're running a sequence where you need a restaurant, competitor, what service type they are, a colleague, and you want to send this to your cold email sending tool, that'd be 5 actions per contact. Now, if you have 10,000 contacts in your campaign, from my understanding, that's now 50,000 actions, which is where I want to get more clarity on exactly how this will work. So these data credits now power enrichments and pay for the provider. So same way as they were using their credits before, just a little bit different. With platform costs no longer baked into data pricing, buying data through Clay is now comparable to what you pay externally and meaningfully cheaper. So you can see that within the credit formation, like for example, finding a phone number, if you wanted to use Lead Magic, it was 6 credits before Clay credits. And now it's 2. So with a lot of these other tools like validating emails with zero bounce now go to 0.1 credit, 90% decrease. Company tech stack we built with is now 50% cheaper. So because of this change in the back end and the way that they're processing data, they've now have the ability to cut down all that cost. All right. So going back into where this actually makes sense for all of us, and I'll drop this article in the description so you guys can read it if you like, is how this is now going to work for guys like us, right? So, like I said, they've changed it into a two-factor system, right? You have your credits and then your actions. Now, the high volume problem. This is where, when you have these teams who are running 10,000 plus record workflows with multiple actions per lead, the new action meter hits hard. So this is where I just think that they slightly were to miss the mark, saying we design plans so 90% of customers never hit those action limits. Because if you're finding 5 actions per per prospects, and then you have a list of, let's say, 20,000 people, and you're trying to run that, I mean, that's 100,000 records right there. So now this becomes a problem. And every platform setup is now metered. So once again, the AI prompts, API calls, CRM pushes, trigger logics. So when there used to be this distinct difference between the workflow aspect and the enrichment aspect of Clay, the workflow portion is no longer going to be this cheap infrastructure that we've allowed to get this great data from. It's going to now feel like an expensive orchestrator, as I've mentioned here. So when you're doing cold outreach of scale across multiple clients, multiple benefits, unless you really now upgrade to their bigger plan, which is at first was $300, right? Is now almost 2 times the cost, going up to 500. Not even for the same amount of credits. 10K would have been the same amount. So basically doubled the price on these plans. Now, let's talk about who it benefits and who it doesn't. So, like I said, within this new change, there was 2 distinct things. You have the enrichment guys, and then you have the high volume guys, right? Which is the orchestrators through workflows. Clay gets better for those enrichment heavy list builders and mid-market GTM teams. So again, multiple if you're a single agency, or if you're just launching email campaigns for yourself, or using it to do data research and enrich data, users wanting a polished platform, and teams doing basic prospect research, right? This is more than enough to get you the job done. And I think it actually benefits you significantly, right? Even though it now jacks up a little bit to be more expensive, which is only 30, $40, not the end of the world. I think that still works out very well, considering the fact that, what it holds true to what they said, right? This is just a couple that they mentioned. I don't know if there's going to be, I assume there's going to be more. But if it really is significantly decreasing the usage, then the credit portion makes sense, okay? I'm not upset over the credit portion. Now, where this gets harder is Clay for high volume outbound guys. So if you run a cold email or an outbound agency, or if you are a huge agency with multiple steps in HTTP and API workflows, this is where your costs and limits are going to be hit rather quick. And now if you're relying on bring your own key based cheap orchestration and going into, all right, beginners evaluating these entry level costs, it's going to be a lot higher to get your foot in the door. Okay. So data heavy users will end up winning this trade off, I'll call it. And orchestration heavy users will lose. And everything else is just a matter of degree. So this is what I've seen and what I'm preparing for moving forward with this. And ultimately, I'd like to finish my project internally and build my own Clay. I think that would be fantastic. But again, your honest portion aspect here is that enrichment and go-to-market research is still worth it. I mean, everything's cheaper. And for a little bit more, I would like to say that if you don't have these platforms, like Lead Magic, I have my own API key. So this has no difference to me. But something like, for example, BuiltWith I have, Clearbit I have. Maybe if I wanted to use ICPs, I'm not sure, I haven't even heard of them until now. But if I wanted to find an email address and now it's half a credit, that sounds pretty good. Low sophisticated GTM, still likely worth it, right? If you're enriching data, drafting, and pushing polished outbound. So if you're, again, like I said, if you're running outbound campaigns for yourself and you're launching a 5K lead campaign, then this should be enough to get you by. And this is where, again, you just come back to this high level aspect. Now we're basically going to be forced to be at this range. And, I don't even see the aspect change here, how much that is. It doesn't mention it specifically. So I'd be very keen on to see what that would look like. Because they don't necessarily bring it up here. Unless it's this right here, credit top ups. But now it gets a little bit more confusing, right? Like what is a credit? Is a credit, you're talking about your data credits or you're talking about the action credits? So I would love to see a little bit more clarity out of them there. But yeah, ultimately I think what it's going to turn to is just more stack building, which is, not the direction you necessarily want to take per se. You always want things to get easier, not harder. And Clay was, again, that default answer just for everything, right? It was just simple. part of the pitch, right? Part of the process is now users who need to be intentional about where they pay for convenience and where they can cost control, because I just think that it's lost some portions. Like I said, if you're really leveraging this at scale, there's a ton of alternatives coming up. I'm testing a few to name, like Floker is one of them. But this is, again, not just because Clay's broken or doesn't work anymore. That's not the case whatsoever. It actually probably got better, but it's just that these trade-offs are now more visible to if you should use it or not use it. So my balanced take is, again, I don't think it got better or worse, right? Like I told you in the beginning, I don't think there's no right or wrong answer, but it's just become a little more specialized, right? So for those guys who are in the lower end, easier, better, good job for them. But if you're on the higher end, I mean, you're really now gonna have to step up your spend with them. So the question no longer becomes, is Clay worth it? But I'll leave you with, what exactly are you using Clay for, right? That's the ultimate answer that's going to determine everything. So with that being said, that's all I have for the video. Any questions, comments, drop them down below. And if you guys want to have this taken off your plate and not have to deal with trying to figure out what tools and things you need to make outbound work, just come over to Dulce. We help B2B marketing agencies average 20 plus sales opportunities in 8 to 12 weeks with AI omnichannel outreach. Book in a call and let's chit chat then. Worst case scenario, you walk away with your cold traffic offer and understand exactly how you should approach marketing to somebody who's never heard of you before. And best case, we partner up, we put that in action, and your team can just rely on the meetings that are coming in and close those deals. Take care, everyone.